Fellow councillors, staff and residents viewing via live stream, good morning all and welcome to this special meeting. I acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of the land on which this meeting is being held and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Councillors, do we have any apologies other than Mr Goodman? Take that as a no. We move on to the declarations. Declaration of prescribed conflict of interest or declarable conflict of interest. Please use this opportunity to make public any prescribed conflicts of interest or declarable conflicts of interest in respect of the items in the agenda. Councillors should use this opportunity to disclose and or comment on other councillors and or staff interest in accordance with the Act and the regulations. Councillors, do we have any conflicts to declare? Councillor Pervin.
Through you, Mr Chair, I have a prescribed conflict of interest in item 1.1 in relation to Nick Pervin Realty and the development by Incorp. I'll leave the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Pervin.
Yeah, with your permission, Mr Chairman, I've received the prescribed written notice from Councillor Pervin in accordance with the Act.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Any further conflicts to declare? Councillor Farinelli.
Mr Mayor, I have a prescribed conflict of interest in confidential item 3.1, the construction of 2019 Reaper Road betterment works, in that my husband is employed by IMEC, one of the tenderers for these works. I will leave the room during discussions and not take part in voting.
Thank you, Councillor Farinelli.
Yeah, and again, with your permission, Mr Chairman, I've received the prescribed advice in writing from Councillor Farinelli.
Thank you, Mr CEO. We move on to the agenda, item 1.1, development permit, and Mr Jones will present this report.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Councillors in receipt of an application for a reconfiguration of a lot, 5 lots into 567 lots, 1 park lot, 2 sewerage pump station lots, and 1 drainage lot. The application is made under the superseded 2005 Johnson Shire Council Planning Scheme. The site is located adjacent to the Innisfail Estate residential suburb and is currently used for the cultivation of sugarcane. The development application is code accessible and therefore did not require public notification. The application required referral to the state government. The state government had no requirements for the proposed development. The land the subject of this request has been the focus of a number of development proposals over the last 15 years. These have included proposals for different size subdivisions for residential purposes, proposal for a retirement village over another part of the site, as well as other operational works applications to facilitate the development. The applicant lodged a request to apply under a superseded planning scheme, being the Johnson Shire Council Planning Scheme 2005, on the 22nd of June 2016. Council approved the request on 27th of June 2016. The main difference between the superseded Johnson Shire Council Planning Scheme and the current Cassowary Coast Regional Council Planning Scheme regarding the subject site is that 3 of the sites have been designated within the rural zone under the current planning scheme. This land, however, is located within the urban footprint of the Far North Queensland Regional Plan and has been designated as future development as required by demand and is outlined in the strategic intent of the current planning scheme. The applicant is seeking to establish a long-term staged master plan residential subdivision over the site. The master plan has been developed in consultation with council officers, landowners, planning and engineering consultants over the last 4 years. In 2019, Council approved Stage 1 of the overall development, being a reconfiguration of a lot for 49 residential lots, which is located directly west of the proposed site across Flying Fish Point Road. The application being considered by councillors for the remaining 3 stages of the overall development. The applicant has requested Council grant an extended currency period of 15 years to allow any approval issued to allow the development to proceed over time. The proposed development provides for the creation of a range of residential development opportunities upon the land, including traditional small lot, as well as multi-unit and larger residential lots, and also a limited area for convenience level retailing. The proposal plan also provides for adequate open space and drainage requirements. The development is to be serviced by all urban infrastructure. The proposed subdivision is to be carried out in stages which have been established based upon infrastructure requirements, and the proposed development is compatible with existing residential development in the area and represents a logical extension of the urban area of Innisfail. The Innisfail Estate area has been identified as Innisfail's main growth corridor for future years. The proposed development is considered to represent appropriate use of the land, which does not compromise the intent of the Innisfail residential precinct. In addition to this, the proposed development is also consistent with Council's long-term planning vision for the site, and the application is generally consistent with the Far North Queensland Regional Plan and the provisions of the Johnstone Shire Council Planning Scheme, and therefore the application is recommended for approval, subject to reasonable and relevant conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councillors, any questions for Mr Jones on that report? Councillor, moved by Councillor Bain, seconded by Councillor Farinelli. I'd just like to make one comment. There is a belief that our youth is our biggest export from our region, and I see this development approval maybe offering some of the opportunities with the first home buyer scheme, and some of our region's children might actually purchase blocks and not leave and actually stay here and have their families. So I think there's a social benefit out of this development as well. No further comments, councillors? All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Jones.
Thank you.
Great work.
Item 2.1 on the agenda, asset rationalisation process, community consultation, and Mr Fisher will present this report.
Yeah, good morning, councillors. Through the chair, councillors, the report today is to progress the item of asset rationalisation, and this item's been on the agenda for a number of years, and it goes back to 2015 when QTC identified council's growing asset base, had placed a significant burden on our community, and that QTC recommended we look to rationalise and dispose of assets that are surplus to our requirements. There's some statistics in the report about just how, high our asset base is in terms of relationship with our population when compared to some of our peers, and obviously the cost of owning infrastructure is one that flows on to our community. In the budget process, council identified a target of $400,000 worth of savings to come through asset rationalisation, and this process is a continuity of that. It started with our asset management plans, which we adopted last year, and in which we identified some assets there where rationalisation may be an opportunity. The criteria that was used when those assets were created are listed in the report, but generally we're talking about infrastructure that now has very limited use or value, and might only be used by a very small portion of a community. And I just want to make the point, we aren't actually trying to pick on any groups, or we're actually really trying to look at this as an opportunity to increase sustainability of groups that may have changed over time, and that through actually shared use, the burden can be spread across groups and also council. The intention now, council, is to use these criteria and expand them and undertake a high-level review of our asset base, or $1.8 billion worth, and identify assets which may potentially meet the criteria for rationalisation. We then intend to use the community consultative group to gauge feedback on the process and to gain community views and opinions, and promote robust discussion that can help council, who is the decision maker, to inform their decision. That group, those individuals, will be there as a representative of the community, and we will use their opinions, their personal opinions, in that process to help guide council's decision. Obviously, this process, we expect a wide range of interest, not only from the consultative group, but groups and individuals and the broader community about the process. And to work and support council in how we engage with the community, we propose to use the IAP2 public participation spectrum, which a snapshot of that is provided in the report. We're proposing some different levels of participation where we'll actually involve the community consultative group, inform the broader community and consult with any affected clubs. Obviously, once council makes decisions, we will then need to collaborate and really work with those groups who may have to change and the way they operate and utilise our infrastructure. And obviously, when we work with those groups, we'll obviously be looking to ask them, and council's approach will be to have a how can we approach. With the decisions made, we need to work out how we implement it for the best of the region and those affected parties. The process, as we've provided there in Figure 2, we see this as an iterative process where we continue to review our asset base, because as our community evolves, so should its assets. We shouldn't hang on to things that are no longer providing benefit. So we see this as the identification, the use of the group. Council is the ultimate decision maker, and a resolution would be made. We then seek to implement and obviously follow up and review and consider further opportunities. I guess the process just obviously once that decision is made, that implementation process becomes key, and that's when we will actually delve into the finer detail of how we actually implement council's process, and that will be when the change needs to be implemented, and obviously that will be a case by case basis, depending on the asset and depending on what council needs to do to ensure we can pass on those savings to the budget. So happy to take any questions through the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Councillors, any questions or comments on that report? I just want to make a couple of key outcomes from your report, Mr. Fisher. 2015 QTC said to council, your current situation is not sustainable. You have a massive problem with your asset base when compared with rateable properties. The real evidence comes when you look at the report from the finance manager in December last year. Cassowary Coast Regional Council's asset value per rateable property sits at $74,000 when compared to the Tableland, $46,000, when compared to Hinchinbrook, $48,000. So we're almost double. We have an asset base of $1.8 billion, and we pay depreciation at $26.8 million currently. Again, unsustainable for a small council. So we're at a crossroads, and I think all that comes down to now is the appetite of our residents, the consultative process with the 26 volunteers. They're going to be the barometer for us before we make any decisions. And in terms of appetite, again, I want to repeat, last year we closed the Arena Lakes pool after community consultation, and there was no backlash. I believe the appetite is there. They understand we can't sustain our current position. So I would ask somebody to move the recommendation, please. Councillor Farinelli, seconded by Councillor Millward. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jones. I need somebody to move that we go into committee, please. Moved by Councillor Chewy, seconded by Councillor Baines. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, councillors, would somebody move that we go back into committee, please? Moved by Councillor Barnes, seconded by Councillor Pervin. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Mr CEO.
Yeah, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, for the record, Councillor Farinelli refreshed her declaration of a prescribed interest and left the room before any conversation occurred during the session held in camera. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr CEO. We move on to item 3.1, the construction Reaper Road betterment works, and hand over to Mr Castle to deliver his report.
I bring before Council this morning in the matter of the construction of Reaper Road 2019 betterment works contract number 117 and put the recommendation that Council enters into a contract for the construction of the 2019 Reaper Road betterment works contract number 117 with Celtic Construction Utility Services for a lump sum of $1,178,348.51 excluding GST to commence this month.
Councillors, any questions for the officer? Comments, questions? If not, would somebody move the recommendation be accepted? Councillor Chewy, Councillor Barnes, all in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And that concludes our meeting. Thank you.